Good day, everyone. It's Oneji here. It's a pleasure to be able to speak to you today on the topic of awareness, self-realization, enlightenment. These are all terms that are pretty much synonymous. Different people have used many different terms. For instance, awareness is another name for God, or another name for consciousness, or another name for presence, or another name for pure love, or another name for that which is. It really doesn't matter which name an individual uses, or a group uses, for that matter, because it has no name. It's nameless, it's boundless, it's dimensionless. It can't be measured, it can't be quantified, it can't be understood. It simply is. It always was, always will be, always has been. And even those terms don't apply to it because they're all time-based terms. So human beings and the planets and the stars, and for that matter, many of the other things we know about, subatomic particles, atomic particles, molecules, atoms, cells, collection of cells, and it goes on and on and on. In fact, it appears that the more scientists dig into the universe, the more they find. And so they smash two atoms together, then they find a whole bunch of other little particles they call subatomic particles, and when they sometimes sooner or later, probably when they're able to smash two subatomic particles together, then it'll break up into something else. It's like, wow, this appears to be pretty much endless. So it appears that when awareness brought forth the universe, it did so in a way for there to be infinite variety and infinite diversity, as well as insatiable curiosity. Because awareness, or consciousness, or God, wants to know itself through all things in all places. And in essence, this is what self-realization or enlightenment is the awakening to the fact that I am not this body and mind. I am pure awareness as this body of mind interacting with other things, which are also awareness in that form. So when two people get together in a room and they start having a conversation about consciousness or God, basically it's God as them speaking to God as the other person about God. Nowhere you can go, nothing you can do where it isn't there. In essence, it's omni-centered, meaning it's at the center of every single thing there is. Now, many of the great sages of the past have come up with all types of ways to attempt to describe it in an effort to help those who feel inspired to understand this awareness for awakening to happen. So there's been all sorts of models. Many of the great sages were Buddha, Jesus, Ramana Maharishi. The list goes on and on. So there has been infinite amount of sentient beings who have awakened. So when someone awakens, how does this happen? Well, the reality is we don't know exactly how it happens. And quite often the person to whom awakening is bestowed upon doesn't know how it happens because it just happened. And here's the key word here. Listen to the word happen. You'll hear me say happen, this is happening, happen, because it just came into being. So one of the great sages of the past in the Advaita yoga tradition, his name was Ramana Maharishi. Now for him, awakening happened at a very early age. In fact, he says he was about 16 years old and he was dying. He didn't elaborate on what was happening, what sort of disease he had, or what had happened, but he was dying. And while in the process of dying, he started asking the question, who's dying? Who's dying? Who's dying? And then awakening happened for him. Because in essence, no one's dying. Because no one's ever lived. Now this is a paradox. And unfortunately, there's no way to speak about these things other than paradoxes. So now I just says, no one ever died because no one ever lived, yet we can walk around and see all sorts of living beings. So let me elaborate on that further. In essence, there are two realities, or two truths. The Buddhists call it the two truths. One is the ultimate reality, or the absolute, which is in reference to presence, or pure awareness. Always was, always is, not definable, not nameable, not measurable, just purely aware and purely present everywhere. And the other is relative reality, the reality that human beings are a part of. So yes, if you go and touch your forehead, then you'll feel your forehead. If you go and touch someone else's forehead, if they give you permission, that is, because it's not really good to go around just touching other people without their permission, because, you know, sometimes you can get in trouble by doing that. So I certainly wouldn't want you to get in any trouble by doing this, by this experiment. But in essence, there are trees outside. I walk on the ground. I can look in a telescope and see the moon. I can stand on the ground and see the moon. There's all sorts of things that a person can do. So it's the two realities. But the reality of the physical, of space-time, is relative. It exists in relation to something else. There truly are no autonomous, independent individuals. We coexist with the environment. The body that we call our body is somewhere between 50 and 100 trillion cells choosing to live together. And there's a cooperation occurs. That's why we call a mind-body organism. Listen to the word organism. It's an organization of cells in a cooperation. If our cells don't cooperate anymore in the body, then the body will fall apart. It just whiz. So Ramana came up with this way of teaching this to say, pure awareness is, always was. Then out of pure awareness arose the initial subject, the I. But this I is the I without the other. The initial subject, I. So when I arose out of pure awareness, it arose out of pure awareness. No one really knows why. It just did. And then, after the I arose, then I am came. When I am occurred, then the entire creation emerged simultaneously. Everything came into existence at one time. That is I am. I am a subatomic particle. I am subatomic particles combining together to make an atom. I am atoms combining together to make a molecule. I am molecules collecting together to make an organism. I am. So the only thing a person can truly say that is aware of is they can say, I exist. I am. I exist. Other than that, nothing can really be said. If you explore that to the depths of things, you know you exist. You have sentience. But if you try to explore that, then what happens is you get to this almost sense of nothingness. Who is this I that exists? Ask yourself that question. Who am I? Who am I? Who is this I that exists? And if you continue to explore that, then in essence, it's as if you turn and walk into awareness. And initially, it may feel as if it's a nothingness, because when the mind first encounters pure awareness, it can't grab anything because there's nothing to grasp. And so, in essence, sometimes what occurs when the mind experiences awareness, says, well, nothing's there, then it turns back around and it goes and tries to pursue something. Now, there's nothing wrong with this because that's what the mind was made to do. The mind was designed, mind by design. It was designed to do things. Why? Who knows? Another model for this is basically the universe exists just because. Just because the Creator wanted to have the experience of an individual talking to another individual. So in essence, it would be as if the entire universe is a theater, and everything in the universe is an actor. So when I say everything in the universe is the actor, I don't just mean the common term, because commonly we would think of, well, an actor is a human being playing a part. But in essence, the earth itself is an actor. It has the appearance of ground. We can walk on it. There's water on it. We can swim in this water. We can drink this water. We can build a theater out of wood and metal and concrete, and then we can go in and play the parts. And other human beings can come and sit in the chairs. The chairs themselves are playing a part. The part of a chair is to be something that this other thing, a human being, can sit in. Everything is in cooperation in one way, shape, or form. Things change from one state of being to another state of being continuously, because the nature of mind, big M-I-N-D, is movement, is change. Now, when Westerners hear the word mind, quite often they equate this with the intellect, but I'm not talking about intellect. Intellect is a little piece of mind. Intellect is a grain of sand on the beach. Imagine how many grains of sand there are on the beach. The intellect would be just one little grain of sand on the beach. Mind, as I'm using the term mind here, and keep in mind, this is just a concept. Mind is everything manifest. Mind comes after I am. I am mind. Mind is in itself creative, is constantly creating. And it's important to listen to the word is creating, I-N-G. It is moving, it is creating. It creates a human being. A human being exists for a certain time. Then the human being goes out of existence. And the body returns back to the elements. And at some other time, another body is brought into being. It's made of the elements. Many times we hear of stuff being natural and unnatural, but the reality is everything's natural. Even the pills that are made in the pharmacies by the big pharmaceutical companies, what are they made of? They're made of elements that come from the earth. Whatever is made here on earth comes from the earth. But at some point in time, these particles and molecules and atoms that were here, they were part of some star that blew up a long time ago. And then who knows where that star came from. So as the universe is explored more and more, even though mind was brought into being, so sometimes it's referenced in a temporal standpoint. So we would say, well, if it's been in place, then it had to start at some time. And when will it end? But in reality, mind has no beginning and ending either. because that which is has no beginning and ending either. So the boundaries are constantly changing, yet at the same token, it doesn't end. So quite often the mind is spoken about as being permanent. You know, we look at things and think it's permanent. We look at a tree. So, wow, this tree's been here for 50 years. When I wake up tomorrow morning, it'll still be there. So, but that's a mistake of our brain because things are constantly changing. But if I put a microscope on that tree, if I could have something that was so powerful that it could witness the molecules, the atoms, the subatomic particles, I would see that every subatomic particle in that tree is constantly changing. So though it appears to be static, it appears to be stable, it appears to keep its form, that's only on the outside. That's only on the macroscopic level. The reality is on the microscopic level, we've discovered that it's constantly changing. So therefore, everything is in constant flux. Even as I'm speaking to you right now, all of the subatomic particles that have made this body have been changed infinite amounts of times just in the time frame that I'm speaking to you. So everything is in constant flux. So wow, now we've gone off on this subject about everything changing, everything moving. And so it's like, wow, well, what does this have to do with anything? Well, what it has to do with is that it's important for us to do our best to understand the nature of things and to understand that whatever understanding we have of the nature of things is only a partial understanding. Only awareness, only presence, only the divine, only God knows every single thing and event that is occurring, what is changing into, what is coming out of. So we human beings are human beings. Whatever it is that you've done in your life, whoever your mother and father is, all of your friends, your family, if you've been married, if you've been divorced, if you're a father, if you're a grandfather, or if you're a bachelor or a bachelorette, you are playing a part for the divine. You're following a script, whether you know it or not. And so, well, I've heard a lot of stuff now. Some of it may be interesting. Some of it may be, some of it might be confusing. Some of it might be, wow, I always wondered about that. So, what's going to happen is, as more videos and stuff emerge and happen, just as this one happened, more detail is going to be given about self-realization, enlightenment, and awareness. My feelings are is that there will be perhaps a video like this, and then right attached to it may be something, for instance, like a little PowerPoint presentation that's shown through the video where I'm narrating and giving examples of what these things are. Because quite often if you look back or look forward, many of the discourses are given through oration. So you either watch a video, you go to a workshop, or you go to a satsang, and you hear the sage speak. You're there to hear presence present itself to presence as you. But if you notice, quite often there are not many visual representations given. And that's because in the past, 2,500 years ago, you know, the sages didn't walk around with computers and projectors so they could project stuff up on the wall and try to help individuals get an understanding of things. So it's going to be perhaps maybe a bit unique for it to be presented in this way, or perhaps it won't be unique for it to be presented in this way. But it's going to be presented however it's going to be presented. And so it's important for you to understand that presence is speaking to you today about presence, and you yourself are presence. So it was a pleasure today to speak to you, to meet with you in this way. More to come. And as always, remember, awareness alone is you are never alone. You're always surrounded by the loving presence of awareness. Have a wonderful day.